Hello, everyone. My name is Ole Kagan, and I'm the Community Engagement Coordinator for LA County Library, and I welcome you to Work Ready Spotlight on Media Careers. And now I'd like to tell you a little bit about the Work Ready program. Work Ready started in December of 2020 with the purpose of helping people find jobs, improve the work situation, and plan a more sustainable career path. And we're doing that in two ways. The first way is that we're lending out laptops and Wi-Fi hotspots to help people cross the digital divide when it comes to training and applying for jobs. We're doing that out of 27 or 20, soon to be 27 library locations. So if you go to those libraries, you can get a laptop, you can get a hotspot, computer, and internet connection. The second way that Work Ready is helping folks with job seeking and beyond is providing virtual events just like this one. So at this point, we've done over 50 events, most of which are on our YouTube channel, and I'll post a link to that in the chat. We have a special playlist specifically for job seekers so that you can watch videos all about there it is, it's in the chat. So you can watch videos about the basics of job seeking, interviews, resumes, cover letters, and more advanced topics, maybe something about career pivots, information gaps, returning to work, and deep dives into various careers. And that's why we're here today, to get a deeper dive into media careers. So before we get going, I would like to tell you about next week's program, and that is Work Ready LA County Programs for Job Seekers. A few weeks ago, we had LA County Human Resources come on and tell you how to get LA County jobs, and they give a lot of information. And next week, we're going to have representatives from America's Job Centers of California, AJCCs, which are all over LA County. And these are one-stop shops for everything you need to find a job. You've got people who can help you with resumes, can direct you to apply, can even connect you with companies that are looking for employees. And we're going to be talking about some of the programs that they offer at the America's Job Centers of California. It's next Tuesday at 11 o'clock. It's free, just like all of our other programs. And I just posted a link in the chat. So if you want to register for that, you can do that right away. And just like most of our other programs, including this one, that one will be recorded. So this program is being recorded and it will be shared with you via follow-up email either later this week or early next week. And next week's program, if you can't make it, don't worry, just register and we'll get you a video link via follow-up email for that one as well. And if you're interested in learning more about programs provided by LA County Library, you just go to our website at lacountylibrary.org. And on the top right-hand side, you can click the events link. That'll get you in-person and virtual events at all of our 85 library locations. And if you just are interested in virtual events like this one, you can hover over that events button and a little virtual programming drop-down will come in. You hit that and you get to see all of our Zoom events for kids, teens, adults, older adults. Of course, they're all free and can be enjoyed from the comfort of your home or anywhere else. All right. Now this program, the Work Ready program, is made possible due to funds provided by the American Rescue Plan. And our presenter for today is Aneesha DuBois. Her professional career spans across music, sports, pop culture, fashion, and voice acting. She held roles at Music Choice in New York City as a programming coordinator, a writer for Clear Channel, Hip Hop Weekly, and allhiphop.com, a production coordinator at Comcast Sportsnet in Washington, D.C., and Aneesha was also an associate producer at E! News and a former fashion public relations director for Wild Fox and All Brands under Australian fashion labels, respectively. In 2019, Aneesha founded luxury e-commerce retailer Well Unknown, which focuses on emerging fashion brands, where she serves as the site's creative director. She is currently a public relations consultant for fashion brand American or Los Angeles Apparel, created by the founder of American Apparel, an adjunct professor at FIDM, the Fashion Institute for Design and Merchandising in Los Angeles, where she teaches an intro to PR course, and a voiceover actor for Nickelodeon, Mattel, American Girl, Enchantimals, or Enchantim, Enchantimals, video games, several films on Netflix, and more. In addition to the above, she recently authored 2 books, a self-help journal, It Always Works in Your Favor, and creator of children's travel brand Passport Poppy that details her young daughter's travels around the world. Under the Passport Poppy brand, she has authored 2 books, created the ABCs of Travel flashcards, and a newly launched YouTube channel narrated as Poppy by Poppy as a puppet. Think Sesame Street characters. And now we have Aneesha DuBois live for you. Aneesha, the stage is yours.
Hello, hi everyone. So glad to be with you all. I'm very, very big on gratitude. So the first thing I want to say is thank you for listening to me. I feel like it'll be beneficial. Like I'll learn from you all with your questions and vice versa. So thank you all for taking the time to hear my story and hopefully be inspired in your own media careers, or if you're leaving one media career, going to another, as I did. I'm going to go ahead and just share my screen. I'll just share my whole desktop, and then let me just bring up my, where is my PDF? Okay, all righty. Yeah, let's bring up the PowerPoint. This way it'll take up the whole screen. Let's see, file, no, sorry, slideshow. All righty. So just a run-up show. So I'll have my introduction. I'll talk about my voice acting and how I got into that and everything that I do now, producing, which I've done some of, kids content creation, which I've gotten to now after having a child. And then, tips that I've used that I feel like you can use to go forth. So there are numerous possibilities in media work. So for me, I'll just give you the cliff notes of my life. I studied mass communications in college. I went to Norfolk State University in Norfolk, Virginia. And while I was there, I was on the radio in school. I had this innate knowledge of doing internships, making sure I was interning. So I did some internships at radio stations in Philadelphia while home for the summer. I'm from New Jersey though. After I graduated from college, I graduated with a job in my field at Music Choice. So at Music Choice in New York City, I was the programming coordinator. So Music Choice, if you're not familiar, it's like the radio station on your television, and it has like holiday channels, jazz channels, hip hop channels, pop channels. So I would program a few channels, and I also dabbled in some voiceover stuff for the network. And while I was there, I also wrote for Clear Channel. So I would like write radio spots part-time. And then this 2 years came around, and I was like, I don't want to do this anymore. And so I moved to Washington, D.C., and I was hired as a production coordinator for Comcast Sportsnet. Comcast Sportsnet is now NBC Washington. But back then, when I was working there, it was Comcast Sportsnet, and it's the home network for the Washington Commanders, the Mystics, the Nationals, the Wizards, every sports team in the area. So my job was to basically, and we'll get into that in a second, more deeper later on, but I worked there and I did some on-air stuff there too. They had a show called Washington Post Live, and I was basically the weekend correspondent, and I would fuse entertainment because I had a love for pop culture back then, and I would fuse pop culture with athletes. So if there was an athlete acting in a movie, I would do a segment on it. If there was, Serena Williams launching a clothing line, I would just talk about it on the show, and it was super, super fun. And then that 2-year mark hit. I don't know what it was about 2 years, but that 2-year mark hit, and I was like, I don't want to do this anymore. And my whole thing was that if I knew then, even as a recent college graduate, that I knew that I didn't want to one day be the VP of programming at Music Choice or an executive producer for Comcast Sportsnet. And I knew that then, and I felt I had learned all I needed to learn. And so I had to move forth, right? And for myself, and then I was holding a spot for someone, who needed that spot. I had learned all I could learn in that position because I knew I didn't want to further myself at that particular company. So maybe that was, why I had this 2-year thing. I don't know why. So then I moved to Los Angeles. And I will say that was always a part of my goals. When I graduated college, I said, I want to live in New York, Washington, D.C., and I want to make LA my home. And so that's what I did. I moved to LA January 2nd, 2011. And, I'm not from LA, I'm from New Jersey, but like, I feel like, like LA is home for me. So I've lived in LA since 2011. And I had this dream of working for E-News. I had no idea how I would make it happen. I didn't know anybody. I just knew I was going to work for E-News. And it only took me 3 months to make that happen. I had first applied for a job as the assistant to segment producers. And I remember I went in, I interviewed, and then I didn't get the job. And I remember being so crushed. Like I thought I was going to have to move back home. Like my life was over. I had this one shot. And then I'm a very big believer in the universe and manifestation and things like that. And 2 weeks later, I got a random email saying, hi, my name is Peggy Jo Abraham. She was the executive producer for E-News at the time. And she said, I received your resume, would love for you to interview for the associate producer position. And I was like, wait, what? Like crazy how things work. And I went in, I interviewed, and I remember being so nervous because I didn't hear back for like 3 weeks. And it was because it was during the royal wedding with Kate and Will. And so all of E-News was in London covering that. So it was a delay in me being hired, but I did get the job. And I remember when I went in for my interview, I remember the resume they had didn't even have my DC job on it. So to them, it looked like I hadn't worked in 2 years and they still saw me qualified. It's the most crazy thing. But I worked for E-News. That was amazing. And I did that for 2 years. And I have a quote in here that, I came up with because I remember my grandmother, she came from a generation that you get a job, you stay in that job for 40 years, and then you retire and do what you love. But like you get a good job and you stay in it. And she could never understand why I was leaving these these amazing jobs, right? These dream jobs of mine. And I thought to myself, maybe a few years back, I said like, yeah, they were dream jobs, but they had become dream jobs fulfilled, right? I had fulfilled that dream of having that job. And now I wanted to do something else. So that's a little quote that I keep, for myself. But 2 years came around and I loved E-News. Writing about Kim Kardashian all day. And then I said, I don't want to write about Kim Kardashian all day. I want to do something else. And I left E-News after about 2 years and I couldn't figure out what I wanted to do next. And I think that's one of the hardest things is figuring out what you want to do, right? Because you can want to do a million things, but what should I focus on first that can then lead me to everything else? And so I knew from working at E-News as an associate producer, I talked to PR people all day. I talked to celebrity PR, fashion brand PR, because I had to get assets from public relations teams to put on E-News. And so I said, I loved it really because it was a lot of perks. They would always send me free things. So maybe that's why I loved it. And I know that you can be public relations for former President Obama, Donald Trump, United Airlines, Burger King. You can be every brand and person has a PR. And I said, well, what type of PR do I want to get into? And I always love fashion. So it took me about a year to make up my mind. And what's crazy is that in the time it took me to make up my mind, like I wasn't getting anything. I was applying for any and everything. And I had experience, but I was not getting any callbacks. It was bad for me. And it wasn't until I got serious and I said, what do you want to do with your life, girl? And I said, okay, PR, what type of PR? Fashion PR. And I promise you, about 2 weeks went by and I was searching on Indeed and I saw a job for Wild Fox, and Wild Fox was a fashion brand. And what's crazy is I love fashion, but I had never heard of Wild Fox, but it was in Nordstrom and Selfridges and Saks. Beyonce had worn it. Paris Hilton was wearing it. And I had never heard of this brand, but I applied. I applied for the job. And then I also email. I always believe in making myself be seen. So I applied how they said apply, but then I also saw that I was going to be reporting to the director of PR at the time. Her name was Kristum, and I found her email. I'm like a detective on the internet, on the computer, and I found Kristum's email, and I emailed her, and she emailed me 15 minutes later and said, "Can you come in for an interview?" And I went in for the interview, and lo and behold, I got the job 2 weeks later. I was PR manager for about a year, and then I was promoted to PR director. And I stayed at Wall Fox for 3 years. So I had broke my 2-year spell. And while being the PR director at Wall Fox was amazing, you know, we had Coachella parties at the Merv Griffin Estate, and Paris Fashion Week and London Fashion Week dinners and Miami Swim Week presentations. It was the most amazing job. But what was happening is that I felt stale in that I had garnered, or I had accumulated all of these contacts, right? I had contacts at Vogue and Harper's Bazaar. And Wall Fox was a fashion brand that people would wear on their couch. And I was like, this does nothing for PR. Like, I need you to be outside in the clothing. And so I knew I wanted to be able to utilize all of my contacts. So I got a job. I applied for a job at Australian Fashion Labels, and I was the director of PR for America for all 5 of their brands. Amazing job. I was there for about a year and a half. And they wanted to part ways. And from a business standpoint, I totally get it, because what they paid me and my coordinator in salary, they could pay an agency a quarter of that and have 10 people working on the brand. So from a business standpoint, it made sense. But if you know how PR works, having PR in-house is way better. You know, having someone that understands your brand every day, lives and breathes it, in-house is better than having an agency who's outside of the office, who doesn't really understand the DNA of the brand. But needless to say, there was no hard feelings. They gave me a severance and I moved on. And then I said, what do I want to do with my life now? And my whole thought was that if me and my little 110-pound self, if I can get these multi-million-dollar brands out there into the world, why can't I do that for myself? Why can't I create something and utilize my contacts and do that for me? And so I had to sit for a second and say, what do I want to do? And then soon after I became pregnant. So I was really like, what the heck am I going to do? Because if I go to work, I'm going to have to leave in 3 months on maternity leave. So there was a lot of things happening, a lot of unknowns. But again, I'm a big believer in God and the universe and things happening as they should. So I had Well Unknown, and Well Unknown. This goes to show you, like, if you have an idea, keep that idea. Well Unknown was a blog. It was a fashion blog that I had in 2013. And I was like, I can't be no fashion blogger. Like, I don't really want to do this. However, I kept that domain for 8-9 years. And then I had the idea for Well Unknown. And basically it was like, you know, it's basically like a Farfetch, a Matches Fashion, an ASOS. It's like a luxury e-tailer, and we focus on emerging luxury brands. So I still get to travel to Paris for Paris Fashion Week and Milan Fashion Week and buy into brands. It's the most amazing thing. So I have that, and it's just me and my partner. You know, we don't have any investors. We can move how we want. So it's doing really, really well. And then I got into voiceovers. I did voiceovers. Again, I was on the radio in college, and I did some voiceovers for Studio Center, but then I really wanted to get into it, and I'll get into that in a second, but I got into voiceovers. And then, you know, I had a child, and I just got into, you know, I'm watching what my child watches on YouTube, and I do voiceover. So I had the idea last November to come up with this puppet, and I'll show you that in a second too. And that's been doing amazing. So yeah, and I teach at FITM. I teach an intro to PR class at FITM. That's awesome. And what's even more awesome is I get to do everything at home and at my leisure. So that is basically the cliff notes of my life, and we'll dive into it a bit deeper as I go into voice acting and all of that stuff. So here we are, moving on. So voice acting, it's some people don't even really notice that the voices behind your favorite cartoons, your child's favorite cartoons, your favorite video games back in the day, commercials on TV, audiobooks, that's all forms of voice acting. That is someone behind a microphone doing crazy things, you know, to get this emotion or feeling out so that you believe what's out there. So with me with voice acting, I got into it. I got signed by Atlas Talent Agency maybe about 3 years ago. And I do voiceover work for Nickelodeon, for Mattel, for Netflix. There's a show on Netflix called Ganglands. It's like for adults only. But it's like Netflix is in this thing where they're buying a lot of films in other languages, and then they have it dubbed. So think about Squid Games, right? They have it dubbed in English, and so that's voice actors. So I am the voice of Leanna, and she is the main character in Gangland. So watch it, stream it on Netflix, and I'll show you a clip of some of my voice acting. But I just wanted to break it down for you all, for those who are interested in voice acting, what types there are. So there's narration, right? So think about Discovery Channel, the History Channel, National Geographic, when they're saying the elephant went over. That's all forms of voice acting. Animation, which is my favorite, which is why I got into voice acting. So Nickelodeon, Cartoon Network, YouTube, Netflix. You know, I'm like, and it's so crazy because I have a lot of little cousins, and when I go to these different schools to read Passport Poppy, the kids think I am like I am like their Beyonce, because they love that, like, I'm the voice behind Coco Vanderbilt on Rainbow High, you know, Felicia Firefly on Blippi on YouTube. They just get a big kick out of it. So that is my most favorite. And then I just get to be free. So I'm in the booth, you know, being Delilah Fields, who talks with a Southern accent, and I have to, like, you know, I have to become her. So it's just the coolest thing. And also too, like when I hear my promos on Nickelodeon, my kid, she's 3 now, she's almost 4, so she pays attention. So she'll hear, like, if it's my voice. For instance, for promo is a type of voice acting, and it's like promotional media for upcoming shows. So if you're watching Nickelodeon and you hear coming up next on Nickelodeon, or coming up next at 8 p.m. on Nickelodeon, is like, that's normally my voice. And it's cool because my daughter will sometimes pick it up. And then when we're in Target, like, we'll go down the Rainbow High aisle, she's like, that's mommy doll, that's mommy's doll. Because I play 2 characters in Rainbow High. So I get a real kick out of it. It's like the coolest thing. Commercial is the 4th type of voice acting. And that's basically what drives all media across radio, TV, and even online. So think about the voices behind the car commercials you hear, the insurance commercials on the radio, all of the pharmaceutical commercials you see on TV. You know, there's a new one every day, like, take AstraZeneca, because all of that is, you know, voice acting. And, you know, I'll tell you how, you know, like how scripts work, and then break down in a second. The 5th type is e-learning. So think about if your children, if they're listening to, like, you know, an audio book teaching them math, or, you know, ABC Mouse, like, those are all, like, I get auditions for that all the time. Educational material for children, or even for adults. So that's a form of voice acting as well. Gaming. So think about your favorite, you know, Call of Duty games. If the character is talking, that's a voice actor behind it. And I will say, I don't mind the video games. There's a video game coming out called Project Miasma. It comes out May 23rd, and I'm doing like 10 characters. I had to have a deep voice, a yelling voice. And I will say, if you do want to get into voice acting, know that doing video games is very strenuous on your voice, because you're yelling, you're having to do like like efforts, which is like acting like, you know, you're being stabbed or something. So you gotta be like, like, it's very strenuous on your voice. But some people love it. But for me, I audition for them not as frequently, because I know if I get booked, they'll have me do like 10 characters, and it'll pay well, but it's very straining on your voice because you're screaming a lot. And then the last type of voice acting is audiobooks. So think about like Audible, Apple Books, you know, and the overall growth of the digital world have made audiobooks even more popular. So those are the types of voice acting. I will say my most favorite is animation. And then my second most favorite is promo. And I will say my favorite is promo because it goes worldwide, but then also too, so does animation, but with promo, the pay is really great, because what happens is you get residuals. So you'll get your standard session fee and then the buyout fee, but then you also get a random check in the mail, or checks in the mail, because depending on the usage and where they play your commercial, you get paid for that. So that's why I love promo. It's like my most favorite, but animation is like like tied. And then animation, of course, you just get like a one-time fee and then you're done. But that promo is like the gift that keeps on giving. I did want to show you all like a script, but because of 9 times out of 10, they make us sign NDAs, which are non-disclosure agreements. So I can't share, I'm not supposed to share or show my audition, the audition material with anyone. So I can't show that. But I will tell you what comes in it. So I get auditions all the time, every single day, multiple times a day. And you can pick and choose. I can say, oh, I don't want to do this. Oh yeah, let me do this. It's totally up to you what you want to do. Sometimes you're requested and they'll say, we want Aneesha to audition for this. And you'll get an audition. It'll tell you what it's about. Sometimes in the specs, which is short for specifications, it'll say, we want this person to sound like this, or we want them to have a voice match to this person. I got one the other day that was a voice match to Sanaa Lathan, and I was like, I can't do that. Sometimes I can. Like one time I had a voice match audition for Minnie Mouse, and I nailed it, and I got the job. So that's how you pick and choose what you can do. But you get, and it'll basically say your audition is due by this time at this day. I will say what I've learned, or what I've noticed since I had this question when I spoke at Bloomingdale's about 3 weeks ago, and they were asking me about voice acting and if I've seen a change in the industry, and I have. So ever since the whole George Floyd thing sadly happened, what I've noticed is that when auditions come through and they say, we want the person to sound like an African-American woman, ages 18 to 30, they'll say, we want this person to be a true African-American. However, I can still audition for roles that call for a Caucasian voice, or, a voice with, a certain type of accent, or dialect. I can still audition for that. But I've noticed that when it comes to African-American roles, it'll say, we only want AA, which means African American, to audition for these roles. So that is something that I've noticed the industry shift. For instance, even in animation, if it's an African American character, it'll say we want the voiceover artist to match the character. Meaning, if the character is African American, we want an African American person to audition for it. So I wanted to point that out because that is something that I've noticed is a shift in the industry since the entire, the George Floyd and, Black Lives Matter and all of that happened. Okay. So painting the picture, day to day and while recording, I talked about this, right? I get the audition. It tells me the specs. I say if I'm going to do it or not. If I'm not going to do it, I don't have to tell them. I just get it. I say, oh, this is perfect. I'll audition for it. I do my audition in my room, in my living room. This is literally my setup. This is my microphone I got off Amazon, and I have coffee. Depending on like if I'm talking a lot, I keep myself hydrated, keep my voice, calm, and then my laptop, and that's how I do it. So for Nickelodeon, Netflix, this is my setup. So you don't need anything fancy. You can get everything off of Amazon, and then you submit your audition. And then it's basically hurry up and wait. So once I submit my audition, I forget about it because that's just how it is. The only way you know you didn't get the job is if you see the commercial. So if I see the commercial on TV, I'm like, oh, yeah, I didn't get the job. But then I'll listen to how that person sounds, how they inflect it. And I'll say, oh, okay. And I won't mimic that next time, but I'll keep it in mind, right? Based off what I did and why they didn't choose me over, this person. So that's why when you get into it and you get like, let's say you get an audition for Netflix and you're so excited, don't do that to yourself. Just forget about it because you won't know that you didn't get it until you see it on TV. So then if and when you're booked, you'll receive an email confirmation. They'll tell you the studio. You'll either go into a studio. Ever since COVID, I will say that we record at home 90% of the time. However, if they give me the option to go into the studio, I choose a studio all the time because if something goes wrong with the audio, engineering, all of that, I'd rather just focus on my talent rather than having to plug in and, I'd rather not do that. I know my strengths. So they'll say you can record at home or in the studio, and then you're given direction. So when you're at home, you have on headphones and you're getting feedback from the voice directors. Sometimes the client is in there. So if you're doing a commercial, for instance, I did a commercial for Swiffer. I did a commercial for Taco Bell. So then I have my voice director directing me, but then After I finish, you'll hear the clients talking and they'll say, yes, we love that. For the next take, can she say it like this, or can she inflect up? So like you're the talent, but there's normally like 8 people that are also on the call listening to how you're delivering what they wrote, the script they wrote. Sometimes you're sitting there while they're matching it up to the actual commercial. So yeah, but I love it all. I love it all. And then you may even be involved in tandem bookings, which involves the other voiceover artists. So for instance, when I was doing the commercial for AT&T, it was me, I was the daughter in the commercial, and then the father. So the father, whoever they casted as the father, he was on the call too. So he would say his part and then I would go. And this way we can feed off of each other, because normally it's just you picturing what the person before you said and then jumping in. So I like tandem reads because you can go off the energy of the person who spoke before you. And then too, in animation, for instance, It Takes Two, the Barbie show on Netflix. Like I was in a tandem read with like 8 voice actors. And it's just like, it's the coolest thing. So that's basically my day-to-day when I'm doing voiceovers and while recording. And again, and just to give you context, if I get 30 auditions a month, let's say I submit 20, I will only get hired for like 3, but that's just the odds of it. But it pays well that if you budget right, you'll be fine. But that's how it normally, works, unless you get a recurring thing. And then you're, if you do like a character on Nickelodeon, you're in the studio quite often. Foundational skills and characteristics of a voice actor. I will say these are in order of importance. Communication, right? Because if you can't communicate, like when they email you for a booking, like I am on my email every 20 minutes, because sometimes they'll say, hey, we have a 911 audition, and they want the audition back in an hour. And I got to figure out how I'm gonna get this audition in. Sometimes they'll say, hey, here's the audition, but the booking is tomorrow. Don't submit if you're not available. So communication is key. So if you get into voice acting, you have to always, they can't say, hey, here's an audition on Monday, it's due by Tuesday, and you don't check your emails till Wednesday. Just forget it. So communication is very, very big. I think that tops vocal skills, right? Because what's the vocal skill if you can't communicate? Vocal skills, of course, super important. Reading and speaking. I'm lucky that like I'm from New Jersey, but I feel I don't have a New Jersey accent. I feel like my accent is very neutral. And I think that helps me booking a lot. And I think too that I sound like I'm like 14. I can also sound like I'm like 6 years old, but then I can also like deepen my voice and I can sound like an adult. So reading and speaking, creativity. And I say creativity is important because sometimes in auditions, they'll ask you to improvise. They'll ask you to improv, or they'll call it riffing, which means they'll give you the script, but they'll say, we want you to improv. So if the script says, I'm not doing anything tonight, riffing or improving is like, girl, I'm not doing anything tonight. Ain't no way. It's just adding in your own as like what you would normally say if you're in conversation with a friend. So I would say creativity is a big part of it. Working in a team environment, absolutely, because it is not just you. You are just a talent, but it is a million people around you. Open to feedback. Voice acting is weird because they'll say, do it this way. And then I'll do it this way. And they'll say, oh yeah, I know I told you to do it this way, but can you do it this way? So you have to be very open to feedback and don't take it critical. They loved your voice. They already hired you. They just need your voice to kind of do this and do this and do this at this particular time. So just being open to feedback, being very coachable, being able to take direction well, and then immediately implement it. So they can't give you, like sometimes they'll say, can you pause after this line and then do this? You can't take 4 takes to get it right. So you have to be very, you have to take direction well and then be able to immediately like, okay, I got you. I can do that. And then the next take, I hit it. So I would say that those are the foundational skills and characteristics of a voice actor. How to get into the business. First, I would say secure an agent or an agency. Again, I'm signed to Atlas Talent Agency. And I will say it's very much a who knows who type thing. I was sending my voice demo to every agency in LA. Nobody wrote me back. It wasn't until I was mentored by Roger Rose, who's a working voice actor too, and he was mentoring me, giving me feedback. I would just make demos. He would give me feedback. And then he introduced me to Atlas. And then Atlas said, okay, come on. Like, meanwhile, I had sent my demos with them probably like 4 times and never heard anything back. So I will say this business is a who you know, but if you believe in your talent, if you don't hear back, don't take it personal. Just try to find someone who can mentor you and then grandfather you in. I don't know why it's like that. It's just like that. So I just play the game and I won. But until then, until you are signed by an agency or an agent, there is work that you can do. And by signing up for voice123.com or fiverr.com, you can sign up and create free profiles there. And when I was casting for my children's audio podcast, The Holidays, I was getting my talent from voice123.com. I will say, though, that when you sign to an agency, agencies frown upon Voice123 and Fiverr. So once you get signed, leave Voice123 and Fiverr alone. Agencies just frown upon it. So, but until you get signed, you can do the work. This way you're familiar with what scripts look like, right? How to inflect, how to take specifications and nail it. You should also take voice acting classes. Now ever since COVID, they're taught via Zoom. So you don't have to always be in Los Angeles, right? Even when you get booked, sometimes I will have scripts that auditions that say, we want talent in LA or New York because they want you to come to a studio. But 50% of the time, you can do it from home. So if you are in Arkansas or Northern California, still be confident that you can still succeed as a voiceover actor. Also, too, a lot of classes that I take, and I'll give you them in a second, they're taught by former casting directors. And so you can familiarize yourself with who's in the business. For instance, I took classes with Sarah Sherman, and Sarah Sherman was the former voice casting director at Disney. Why not be in front of her and why not have her coach me? I'm pretty sure that after being coached by her, that's how I nailed my first animation role with Cave Tales and Cave Club. I'm pretty sure, because she was telling me, she was basically giving me what she was looking for, right? I took classes with the Voice Caster, which is located in Burbank, Kelly at the Voice Caster. She's amazing. And then take her classes, and then she begins to send you auditions, right? And you're not even signed by her, but she will send you auditions because she's a casting director. And so she gets auditions from the Coca-Colas, all of it. And again, it'll familiarize yourself with the voiceover community in the area. I did want to say something else about that. Casting directors, blah, blah, blah. I think that was it. And then here, I have this link here. I believe Oleg will share my PDF with you all, but I have this here because I have an e-guide where I talk about becoming a voiceover actor and how I got into it, what I bought off of Amazon, and all the tips and tricks that I've learned getting into the business and even today. So that is how I got into the business, and how you can too. I feel like there was one more thing I had to mention and I can't remember. Voiceover 123. Oh, that's what I wanted to mention. So on Voice123 and Fiverr.com, you won't see the big auditions for Coca-Cola or Netflix or Disney or Nickelodeon, because those big brands, they work with an agency. They don't go directly to the person. They go through your agency or your agent to you. But you will see quality auditions on there. So just, when you get on there and you're like, wait, where's the big auditions? No, the big brands go through agencies. But again, until you get signed, that is how you can get the ball rolling and just understand how the business works. This was my quote. Oh, wait. Yeah, I have this quote too. I have this quote on my website. It says, there's this quote out there that says, "Jack of all trades, master of none." And I believe that is the furthest thing from the truth. And I feel like I'm proof of it, and you may well be too. You can absolutely master as many trades as you commit yourself to. And that's the part. If you have this desire in you and you commit yourself to it, look what happens. I've literally switched careers and I went from music entertainment to sports entertainment to e-news pop culture to fashion as a PR director to now being hired all the time in voice acting, right? But it was because I committed myself. At that point in time, it became, when I hit my 2-year mark, I was like, I don't want to do this anymore. But prior to that, I committed myself to it. I said, this is what I want to do. And it flourished. It flourished. So I'm a big believer in you can absolutely master as many trades as you commit yourself to. I'm going to stop sharing my PowerPoint because I want to show you all my voice, my voice reel. I show this when I go to schools. I'm sorry, my whole desktop is all over the place, but I show this when I go to schools with children. They get a big kick out of it. So I'll just play snippets of a few of them. So this here is a trailer for MTV. I was hired as the voice for their new promo. They had a movie come out April 20th called Pretty Stoned. So I was the voice for that. So I'll play a quick snippet of that where you can hear my voice.
Now, the trailer for the MTV original stoner girl comedy, Pretty Stoned.
It's 4:20. I should be high out of my mind. I am a vibe. A bad vibe, girl. On a bad vibe meter, I'm up here. You, my friend, is way down here.
Happy 420, everyone! Whoa.
Will these girls get their flowers?
Where's my weed?
I flushed it because you got me fired.
I struggle.
So that is so they had like that was the long one, like a minute one for the movie promo, but then they had 30-second ones where I would say like next week at 8 o'clock, the MTV new original stoner girl movie, Pretty Stoned. So that was really cool. That was my first MTV spot that played. This is what's on Netflix. I'm the voice of Leanna.
No.
Sorry, it's so small.
Take it, Sean. Yes. Go and find my child.
I'll get her back. Don't worry. Where is she?
I don't know. What the hell are you anyway?
Say, this is my niece. They kidnapped her. I just want to get my niece back, okay?
And me, what do you think I'm doing here?
You love her?
So that was me as the voice of Leanna, and season 2 is actually out now. So again, I would love if you streamed it on Netflix, and that was super cool because it was new for me. So I'm like in the booth, like acting like I'm shooting. So I have to like get into character. So I'm like in the booth doing all these crazy moves and acting like I'm like running and jumping and like holding my breath and talking from my stomach. It's like the coolest thing. And then I wanted to show you my animation reel.
Not me. You can all go on ahead.
That's my voice.
You're not coming with us, Lorelai?
I can't go out there. I was raised by saber-toothed tigers, remember? And saber-toothed tigers don't get wet. I'll just wait here until it passes.
And that was my very first animation role. I was Lorelai in Cave Tales and Cave Clubs. They have a doll out now. Like I'm collecting all these dolls, the coolest thing. But I'll skip through. And this is I play Coco Vanderbilt on Rainbow High.
Coco. Uh-huh. Okay. Only red candy in the dressing room. Only red. No burgundy. To your run of show new adventures all summer long. This Friday in an all-new Paw Patrol. Oh, no, March, get it, go! It's the biggest race of the season, and everyone has their eyes on the prize.
That was for Nickelodeon. This one here is for Blippi Wonders. If you have small children, grandchildren, then I'm pretty sure you've heard of Blippi, but he has an animated show now that plays on YouTube. So I was the voice of Felicia Firefly, and I'm also the voice of the Sun, but those episodes don't come out till September.
Hey, it's me, Blippi. I was wondering, why do fireflies light up?
Hey, I'm Felicia. And if there's one thing you gotta know about us fireflies, it's that we are all about that blink.
1, 2, 3. 1, 2, 3.
Let's skip through. This is like more repeats of the same.
On awesome new adventures.
So those are some of the snippets. Again, that's what I show when I go to like the elementary schools, and the kids get a big kick out of it because they watch Blippi, they watch Nickelodeon, and then sometimes I'm like you know, when the video ends of me showing all of my like snippets, I'm like, you know, like trying to get their attention back because then they think they're about to watch Blippi or Nickelodeon. So I gotta like reel them back in. Let me go ahead and share my slide again. So yeah, so that is my life in voice acting, and I know many of you may have questions, and I can't wait to answer them after we finish. But I'll go ahead and move on about, you know, spotlighting media careers, and then my work in producing. And so, you know, there's producing for live sports shows, right? As a production coordinator. So when I was as a production coordinator, and again, like I'm giving like my experience in the producing world. So like I can't tell you like what an executive producer does, but I can tell you my relationship as a production coordinator to the executive producer. So when I was producing for live sports shows as a production coordinator at Comcast Sportsnet, I was in charge of crewing, and crewing was basically finding talent. So you need it takes about 50 people. On the back end, we're watching the Lakers play the Warriors, and we're having the most amazing time, big drinks in our hand and all that good stuff. But on the back end, it's people scrambling. In the arena in the back, there's two trucks. There's the home team truck and then the visiting team truck. So what I would do for the Wizards games or whomever, what I would do for the games is, let's just say the Lakers were coming in to play the Washington Wizards. I had to crew the Washington Wizards truck, which means I had to hire the executive producer, the utility person. The utility person is the person that when you see cameramen running on after, let's say the Lakers and Warriors, there's a timeout, right? When you see that person running onto the court with the camera and there's somebody behind them with the rope, that's the utility person. So from the executive producer to the utility person, I had to staff, and it's about 50 people per truck. And then I had to do the same for the visiting team. And I would have to crew all of that, executive producers, segment producers, line producers, going all the way down. In the truck, it's chaos. It's like the executive producer yelling at this person, bring up this screen, do this, do that, post up on this. It's chaos. It's chaos. So what's crazy is every time I'm watching a live game, I just know the chaos that's going on behind the scenes to make it possible for us to watch it. So I always get both perspectives. But that's what I would do as a production coordinator, setting up. So for instance, for the Washington, but they were the Washington Redskins, but now they're the Washington Commanders. If the game started at 11, I had to be at the FedEx Field, which is where the Commanders play. I had to be there at 4 in the morning. 4 in the morning, I was going to FedEx Field to basically set up for an 11 o'clock show. That's how long it takes for us to set up on the back end. The show would happen, having a great time, kind of, sort of, because I'm kind of working. And then the breakdown. And then we're normally there maybe 2 to 3 hours after the game ends. So our days during a live game are about 15 to 16 hour days by the time we start and by the time we get to go home and, breakdown and all that stuff. So that was my experience producing for live sports shows as a production coordinator. Chaos. And I think I'm going to talk about qualities of wanting to be a producer. Like I said it best, if you relish in chaos, organized chaos, then being a producer of some sort is for you. Producing for pop culture as an associate producer. So at E! News as an associate producer, I was in every morning at 7 a.m. because, our 7 a.m. in LA is 10 a.m. in, New York. They're already about to go to lunch. So I was in at 7 a.m. And basically we would have a meeting at 7:30 confirming the run of show. What are we talking about? Who divorced who married who cheated on who got caught here? It sounds insane. Who got caught here? Who, wore what to what red carpet? This is literally what we're figuring out, who and what we're going to talk about. And don't let it be breaking news. Then we're 500 emails in. Our email storage at E! News was insane. We would, I remember when Whitney Houston died. I was at E! News when Whitney Houston died, and it was chaos. Who's going to go up to the she passed away at the Beverly Hilton, I believe. Yeah, the Beverly Hilton. Who's going to get to the Beverly Hilton? Okay, what did this person say? What is TMZ talking about? Because TMZ was our competition. What is TMZ talking about? Who did this? Can somebody go? It's insane. Again, organized chaos of some sort. Confirming run of show ideas, writing the scripts. I never necessarily had to write the scripts unless someone was out, and I would intervene some, but that wasn't a role of mine. My job was basically getting all the assets, doing all the research, getting the information for them to put into a story to put on the show. And then of course, after write the scripts, we literally have the talent go in, record it, and then that was it. And then we come back the next day. And again, God forbid we caught, Drake and Tyra Banks at Disneyland. In LA, when I was working at E! News, everybody who, that's how we found out who was dating who, because celebrities would take their date or who they were seeing or whatever to Disneyland. They would rent out Disneyland for the night, and they would be there riding rides till 2, 3 in the morning, and we'd get wind of it. And then, we put it on the show. But Disneyland was celebrities thing. I don't know if they do it anymore. But that's basically being an associate producer at E! News, and working in pop culture. And I will say after a while, it got kind of draining. I was there in the height of the Kardashian era. So we could not say Khloe Kardashian looked great in this blue dress unless we ran it by the Kardashians people. Like, they really ran that network. We couldn't say who, what, when, where, why without saying, hey, is it okay if we say who, what, when, where, why? But I loved everything about it. I loved E! News. And then there's producing for animated podcasts as a show creator and talent. So I told you all, I'm in this kid content creation space. And so I co-created a show called The Holidays. And it's basically a Black family from Chicago. The main girl, her name is Clementine Holiday. And it's a play off the last name. They own a party planning store where they celebrate a holiday a day. So you know how today might be National Ride Your Bike Day. Tomorrow might be National Eat an Apple Day. Like, there's crazy holidays every single day. So it's about this family celebrating these crazy, wanky holidays every day. And they have a party planning store in the mall. And Clementine, I voice Clementine. And it's, Clementine struggling between wanting to grow up and then her dad still wanting to celebrate a holiday a day. So I wrote all 10 episodes for season 1. It was the most amazing thing. I casted the talent off voice123.com. I was the voice of the little brother, Corey, Clementine, the main character, and then the mom. So that was awesome. And for me, it was writing the script. So learning how scripts are written. When you're writing for television, it's easier than writing for just audio because you have to play up the imagination. So, on TV, you can just say, have the talent eat an apple. But if I'm writing for audio, an audio podcast, I have to describe, Clementine is eating an apple. How can I can't just say that. I have to visualize. So I have to say, I want an apple right now. And can you rinse my apple off? And then you hear somebody crunching an apple. So when you're writing for audio or producing for an audio podcast, especially a children's audio podcast, there's so much that goes into it because there's no visual. There's no visual for them. So you're playing into their imagination and you have to describe every single thing that your character is seeing. If your character's in the mall, you can just say, let's walk through the mall. You have to say, no, let's walk through the mall. Oh my goodness, look at that shirt. It's blue. I love that color blue. It's like a light blue or like a sky blue. You have to describe things. So that's what I learned, in being a co-creator in talent and producing an animated children's podcast. Good thing though, I had a mentor. His name is Pat Carmen, and Pat Carmen is a best-selling children's author. And he was the one, he saw so much. I had never written a show in my life. I'd never. He saw so much talent in me. He had asked me, he said, hey, I'm the talent on one of their shows called Whale of a Tale. I play Xavier in their audio podcast, Whale of a Tale. And he had asked me, he said, I have this show idea, but I want you to take it and run with it. Change the characters, change it up however you want, change the character names, and then create it. And so he had the initial idea and then he gave it to me. He trusted me with it. And I took off with it. And it was like the most amazing thing. And I'll show you where it is if you want to listen to it. And then lastly is producing for YouTube as a show creator and talent. Like I said, I had this, when I had my daughter, an idea was birthed in me after giving birth to her. We travel a lot. We went to Africa twice last year. We travel a lot. And so I said, let's create, I wanted to create I had this idea just in November. So only 5 months ago or so. And one thing I know is that when I have an idea, I have that idea for a reason. I have to act upon it. Right. So I said, how do I want to do it though? There's a million YouTubes out there with children, and I said, I want my child to just remain a child for as long as she can. So I don't want to force her. Let's just say she has a toddler tantrum and I'm trying to, record something on the beach in Zanzibar. I don't want to have to rely on her and, her crazy emotions that I may not get the shot. So what I did was I created a puppet and I have the puppet. I'll show it to you. I created Passport Poppy as a puppet. And so I basically, it's basically mimicked after my daughter. This is my daughter's vest. And I basically, I have the sticks here for the hands. I put, my hand up the back of the puppet and I have her talk. Oh, here she is. And I have the puppet talk and I travel everywhere with this puppet. One of the episodes I was at the White House. I literally had the puppet like in front of the steps of the White House in the Oval Office. And so it's so crazy that I had this idea and I knew to go forth with it, and it's done so well. And I'll show you a quick snippet of it. Here's Go Kid Go. This is the show. So here I am Xavier. I'm the voice of Xavier in Whale of a Tale. And this here is my show, The Holidays. So you can go listen to every episode I wrote. I'm the voice of Clementine, the brother Corey, and then the mom. But you can listen to it Apple Podcasts, Spotify. But it was the most amazing thing. And I believe we're going to start working on season 2. I have a call with them tomorrow. So fingers crossed, it'll be, season 2 talks. And then I want to show you the Passport Poppy. So I had this idea in November. It took about, a month and a half for me to get the puppet made. I found a puppeteer in Eagle Rock. She made this puppet for me. And I only launched this in probably like January, and I'm already up to 313 subscribers. My best video that I posted a month ago has 67,000 views. This one that I did 3 weeks ago in Virginia has 18,000 views, and it's just doing so well. Like every time I log on, it's like the video I posted, I post videos every Friday. That's the thing, I committed to it. So I post videos every week, and it's strenuous. I have to like figure out, my last episode, last Friday I was getting on the plane coming to Philadelphia. To DC. So I said, okay, perfect. I'll do an airport episode. And then the episode that I'm going to post this Friday is a Philadelphia episode, because I was in Philadelphia on Sunday. So it's been working out pretty well for me. But I say all that to say, if you have an idea, you have that idea for a reason, commit to it. Like they didn't give this passport idea to Beyonce or Kylie Jenner. They gave it to me. God, they gave it to me. And how dare I not act on it, right? And look at how great it's doing. Like the video I put, I'm literally astounded every time I log in and see the uptick in views and like people who share it. And there's like their students are watching it in daycares and elementary schools when they have like it's just the most amazing thing. And again, producing for this, like I'm basically, I'm the talent in the, talking through the puppet. And again, I had no experience being a ventriloquist with the puppet. I'm not that good where I can like not talk, like not have my mouth move and only have her mouth move. I'm not there yet. But it's just so fulfilling, and look at how people are responding to it. So this has been amazing, plotting out episodes. And again, it's easy because we travel so often. So right now, I fly home to LA tonight at 10 p.m. and I land in LA tomorrow at 12:30 in the morning. But right now I'm in Washington, DC. And it just works for my normal life. So again, y'all, if you have an idea, commit to it. 1 step a day. All I did was 1 step a day. When I first had the idea, I went and secured the YouTube channel. I secured the Instagram. I, made the LLC. I was Googling, finding a puppeteer to make it. I was talking to her every step of the way. Just one step a day, one thing a day to get you here. I didn't try to like jump from puppeteer to whatever. I was planning out episodes while they were, I was plotting out a calendar of episodes while the puppet was being made. So I know when you have this idea, it can seem so grand and there's so many things to do and it's just you, but you can do it if you just do it just commit to doing one thing a day, and it'll lead you to, where you want to be. So I wanted to show that. I also wanted to show, this is Passport Poppy, the website. And, right now I have 2 books. Passport Poppy at Home, which talks about her life between DC, where we are now, and then Los Angeles, where we're flying home to tonight. Passport Poppy, this book just released last month in Paris. And then I have these, the ABCs of Travel flashcards. And I was doing my research. There was nothing out there like this. And so it's basically like, A is for airplane, but it's so much more, right? Y is for yoke. Yoke is the actual steering wheel of the airplane. It's not called a steering wheel. It's called a yoke. And I'll give you a quick story. I remember we were in Amsterdam in November, and we were eating at a cafe, and my daughter's 3, and she's looking down, like we're in the cafe at the window. She's looking down, and she sees, she yells out, excavator. And excavators, those like big old digging yellow machines. I had no idea what an excavator was, but I knew that she learned it from watching Blippi on YouTube. And I love that for her. So that was my thinking, that I hope that when children see these, when they're exiting or entering an airplane, they'll scream out yoke instead of like steering wheel, like that was my hope for this. So, and again, I didn't have this idea 4 years ago. I only had this idea about 3 years ago. And look where it's taken me. It's now taking me to a YouTube that is doing tremendously well, and books. If you have an idea, go for it. Like, don't sit on it. Like the world, we are all waiting on an idea that only you can bring into fruition the way we need it. And then the last thing I wanted to show you really quickly was my e-guide. So I know I talked about voiceover, but then I have this e-guide that goes a bit more in depth of, tips and tricks and things like that. And if you purchase it, I'm more than happy to chat with you more. And, I can become a mentor for you. I believe, I'm here as a resource, right? Like I feel like you give and you take. And so I'm here, for any of you. And that's on my website, AneeshaDuBois.com. Okay, so back to the slideshow. Producing. So back to producing. Foundational skills. I will say that, and again, Oleg, he had this quote when we were talking about, the presentation, and he was absolutely right. So I literally took this quote from him and put it in here. But he was saying, if you relish in chaos, this role is for you. Like being a producer is for you. If you relish in the organized chaos, that's exactly what it is, right? It's organized because something great comes from it. A great broadcast with millions of people watching comes from it, but from behind the scenes, it is chaotic. So these are the skills that I feel that you need. And again, these are in no particular order, but these are the skills I feel you need if you want to get into producing. Multitasking, obviously. Leadership skills, attention to detail, for sure. Flexibility, because things change, power goes out, somebody curses, you got to creativity, obviously, when you're producing, working well under pressure, organizational skills for sure, and then great communication, because you are a necessary piece in a big puzzle. So if you can't communicate, it throws everything off. So I would say those, and again, in no particular order, these are the foundational skills to producing. And I will say that, you want to work for E! News, you want to be a producer for, an NBA, TNT, but you can start on your own, like YouTube, like things are there for you to start on your own. My daughter just walked in and I do want to introduce her because she's the reason behind Passport Poppy. Do you want to say hello? You say hello? That's my daughter, Poppy. And again, when you work from home, you can do a broadcast like this and then, the children just walk in. Okay, I'm almost done in a second. So those are the foundational skills for producing. And then the types of producing, right? There's so many types of producing. Types of producers. There's executive producers, line producers, segment producers. I was an associate producer, supervising producers. I was an associate producer and I reported to supervising producers. And then above them was my executive producer, Peggy Jo Abraham. There's regular producers, co-producers, coordinating producers, production coordinators. I was that as well. Segment producers, field producers. There's so many types of producing. And again, you can want to be a supervising producer all your life, right? You can one day want to work your way up to EP. We'll be here for another hour if I delved into each of those, but I can only speak from my experience as a production coordinator, as a associate producer, and then I guess as like a producer, for the holidays and then for Passport Poppy. And then types of productions, right? You can be an EP in film, an EP for digital, right? For TV, for radio, there's EPs in radio, print, producing things for print. So there's so many types. It's just like with PR, right? When I wanted to get into fashion PR, I had to say, yeah, you want to do PR, girl. But one second. Yes, you want to do, yes, 1 second. She's asking for snacks. Yes, you can do PR, but what type of PR? So I think if you want to get into producing, just kind of get clear on what you want to do. And then this is the quote that I had earlier, when I said dream jobs can become dream jobs fulfilled, right? And that's okay. Go forth and create something new. And I think I'm proof of that, I don't fault my grandmother for what she said, because she grew up in that generation that you get a job and you stay in it. And that's why she could never understand me, right? And why why I had these great jobs that I wanted so bad and moved to LA for, and then quit 2 years later. But I just knew there was something in me to keep going. And again, when I get that itch, when I get that idea, I know it's for a reason. And I know I would be doing myself and the greater good a disservice if I don't move forth with it. And again, like Passport Pop, it didn't take me a year to do this. I had the idea in November, and one thing a day. I committed to one thing a day. I launched it 2 months later in January, and look at what it's doing number wise. So, as long as you do your part, everything will come to you at need. Ideas, resources, a puppeteer. Going into my last slide on kids content creation, I talked about, a day in life creating for the holidays, writing the scripts, getting feedback from Pat Carmen, finding the talent, working with them and recording it. And then once I submitted the scripts, my work was done. They would, after the producers or the editors edited everything together, they would send it to me and get my feedback. For Passport Poppy, it's an everyday job. I try to do one thing a day, because not only do I plot out the episodes and roughly write the scripts, I'm like planning trips. Where should we go? And when we go these places, what should we do? What should we do? And again, I haven't been a mother for 20 years, but I feel like I have a child, and I watch what my child watches. I watch what she laughs at, what she responds to, what keeps her attention. And she's been my greatest teacher. It sounds cliche, but I literally have a case study that's with me every single day. And I just went forth with it. So that's Passport Poppy, and I edit it too. So I'm the voice, and then I'm trying to hold the selfie stick, and then I have, my hand up the puppet, and I'm trying to talk with the puppet. In the beginning, it was bad. Like my hand was so tired. I had the puppet looking this way and the camera's this way. But I'm in a good rhythm now. Foundational skills when creating kids content, I would say creativity and imagination. If you have that and you have an idea, go forth. That's all you need. Creativity, imagination, and the idea. And then types of children's content. Of course, there's books that I write for Passport Poppy, audio that I did for the holidays on Go Kid Go, educational materials, the flashcards that I made, and then video, what I'm doing on YouTube. So that is, I can't speak, I'm new in this kid content space, only about a year and a half in. So I will say things that I've done. I've never tried to recreate the wheel, right? For lack of better words. When I have an idea, I do my research and see what else is out there. And then there's no puppet. I found no puppet. I found no ABCs of travel flashcards. So I knew, in doing my little bit of research, I didn't do research for like 2 years. I did research for probably like 30 minutes. And I said, oh, let's go forth and do this, because this is missing. And again, I wasn't trying to like fill a void. I just had an idea. I saw if there was anything out there similar. There wasn't. And here we are. So it's been working out pretty well for me. When I have these cool ideas for kids things, I just make it happen. And the thing is, you don't need like Simon and Schuster bookstores to buy your books or make your books. I found everything on Alibaba. I found the most amazing manufacturers creating quality content so that the kids weren't ripping the books in half. You can start a YouTube. You don't need these big corporations to buy into you, right? Because when they buy into you, they're going to want half of it. Go Kid Go. When I pitched them the idea of Passport Poppy, Go Kid Go wanted 50% of Passport Poppy for a lifetime. And Passport Poppy was nothing but one book at the time. And I said no. And I love them. They still gave me a show on the platform. I love it. But I had to say no, because I just knew how big it could be. And I think too, because Passport Poppy is mimicked after my daughter, I said, I can't give away 50% of my daughter, so I can't do it. And I'm kind of glad I didn't, because I'm not having to force out content or try to pay people back or make people money. I can just do it at my leisure, right? And it all works. Because if you get these big corporations, they're going to want half or a little bit more than half, right? So if you can, for as long as you can, try to keep it yours. And of course, that would be my advice, because I'm glad I didn't give up 50% of Passport Poppy. And my last slide for real. from thought form to launch, the road to launch, I would say you have an idea, research it. When the idea comes to mind, research the marketing, right? One thing at a time, secure your domain, secure your social media handles, right? And you don't need a budget for that. That's free. Well, the domain is probably like $10 a month, if that, $5 a month. But secure it one thing at a time, one thing, one day at a time. Design, right? Finding designers for graphics. Like I found the person who created the Passport Poppy intro. It's amazing. I found her on Upwork. There's so many amazing people out there that you can, and she did it for, I think, $100. And it's the most amazing intro and outro. Strategy, right? Coming up with a strategy of how to launch to masses, and not masses meaning the entire world, but how to get it up on YouTube and keep it consistent. And I will say, once you have this idea, like, don't build an audience and then abandon them. So that's why I probably stress myself out trying to get an episode out a week for Passport Poppy. But I don't want to leave those kids hanging who have subscribed and are waiting every week. Because that's what I said. I said new episodes every week. I don't want to leave them hanging. And that keeps me going. Launch, just do it. You don't need these big corporations. They're going to come. When they see what you've done, they're going to come and want a piece, and then make them pay. But don't give them half up front. Like, build it all your own. And trust me, they'll come. And then you can say, well, it's my idea. Pay me this much for 40% of it, or however you would do it. You must start the journey in order to learn and evolve. And then tips to go for: self-care is doing the work you love starting today. Do what you love starting today. Like, that is self-care, not going to a job that you can't stand. You already have in you the ability to accomplish any and everything in you if you gain experience. Stay prepared and fearless in your pursuit. And then you have dreams and gifts in you that no one else has. Like, seriously, we all do. What an honor that is. You have an idea in you that no one but you can make happen. What a privilege that is. So take care of your gifts, bring your ideas to life. The world needs them. People are waiting on your gifts. The greater good is waiting on you. And then here's my thank you for listening to me for about, an hour or so. And then here's my Instagram, my website, and then Passport Poppy, and then Passport Poppy YouTube. And thank you so much.
Thank you very much, Aneesha. I was gonna say, like, what you put some quotes of yourself and everything. I was like, go forth. That's the big quote. That's the big takeaway for today.
Go forth.
You got something to do, go forth.
Do it. Just do one thing at a time, and it'll get you to where you want to go.
Honestly, I have a 4-year-old, so all those voiceovers and everything, Blippy and everything, that's my life right now. So, like, your voice is the background of my life.
I feel you.
There we go. But it's great.
Yeah.
So we get a lot of questions. I think some of them we'll try to get some of them today, and then some of them maybe we can do by email and cover in the follow-up email.
Absolutely.
That way, because I know somebody needs a snack, so that's pretty important too.
No worries. I think she went out. I think she found someone to give her a snack, so we're all good.
All right. All right, so let's see. I'd like to try my hand at voiceover acting or writing, but I don't intend to have it as a full-time job. Is it something that I can do over the weekend or in my spare time? And how do I go about finding such opportunities?
I would say finding those opportunities to start. I would say when you sign to an agency, there has to be some level of commitment, right? They may want you to come in from 2 to 4, or like you have to be available, when they need you. So I would say being signed to an agency is a bigger commitment. However, you can get started now on voice123.com. So it's voice123.com, and then Fiverr, Fiver, Fiverr.com. You can go on there, create a profile for free, and begin to get auditions. And Fiverr and voice123.com are a little less demanding, because it's not the big corporations like Nickelodeon and Disney. And God forbid you get signed and you don't show up for a gig, you're ruined in Tinseltown. So I would say if you want to do it part-time, just to get your feet wet, have fun with it, even though being signed by an agency is also fun, but I would say start with voice123.com or Fiverr.com.
Then you have examples of your work that you can always, you can send out after.
Yep, exactly.
So are you worried about that AI will cause you to lose work, especially voice acting? There's a few people have asked that question, actually.
Yeah, I've been seeing like, I've seen like in the past 2 weeks, I've been seeing AI pop up a lot on like social media and like it's like the AI sounds just like Rihanna and Drake. No, because then I'll operate out of fear, and then everything will go to hell. I can't worry about that because I know that I'm protected, and if I operate out of like me losing my job or like a fear-based mentality, then nothing's gonna work. So I'm not ignorant to it. I'm aware of like what's happening somewhat, but I'm not like nervous or like reading into it too much. You know, I feel like they'll go after the Drakes and Beyonces and Rihannas before they come after me in my little Nickelodeon promo. So no, I'm not worried.
Sounds good. This is an interesting question here, and I think you may have to go back to one of the previous slides. Can you rank the different types of voice acting from most challenging and most straining on your voice to least challenging and least straining on your voice?
Yes, absolutely. So the most challenging on your voice is the gaming. So for video games, because you're having to act like, you think of Call of Duty, right? You're having to act like you're being shot and like screaming. So there's like, they call it efforting. So it's like, ugh, and you're like, oh, like it's like you have to act like you're like shooting someone. Like it's a lot of efforting. And so that's very strenuous. So whenever, for instance, when I recorded for Project Miasma a couple months ago, I did 8 characters and I was only in there for 1 hour. My voice was so scratchy after for 1 hour because I'm screaming, I'm yelling, I'm like, so that is most strenuous for sure. The easiest I would say the next strenuous on your voice is probably audiobooks because you're talking for so long. Think about a novel that's 600 pages. You're having to read and speak all of those words. So that can be very strenuous on your voice, and they break it up. If you do get hired to do audiobooks, they'll break it up. Same with e-learning, that can go after audiobooks as being the most strenuous. And same with narration, because if it's an hour-long program, you're having to talk for an hour, and talking for a while takes a lot out of your voice. The easiest, I will say, of the last 3 would be the easiest is promo, because it's literally coming up next on Nickelodeon and you're done. Animation, I would say commercial. Commercial is the next easiest because it's like, buy AstraZeneca because, or come buy I don't know, a Whopper from Burger King for $4.99, right? Easy peasy. And then animation, I would say, is the next easiest because it's like, it may be if cartoons are 30 minutes, if you take out the commercials, it's only like a 20 minute commercial, and you may only have 30 lines. So you're just saying line, and that's it. So that's how I would rank them from most strenuous to the easiest.
Sounds good. And there was somebody asked that when you had your mic set up there, that item behind the mic.
Yes. So basically, here behind this little thing, this circle thing here is a pop filter. So the pop filter, you have to get one of those on Amazon for sure. It goes in front of your microphone and it stops the pops of your P. So if I'm saying like, please don't forget to purchase, like the P's will pop and you'll hear and like in the actual recording. So that pop filter helps like what's the word? It helps soften the P.
Cushion that, yeah.
Yeah, cushion it, exactly. And behind that is my microphone plugged into my laptop via USB. And when I'm recording for Nickelodeon or Netflix, I always record in a program called Audacity.
Free.
I do my auditions in Audacity as well. And then this thing behind it is cushioning. So it sounds like, it doesn't sound like I'm outside recording. It's like it helps with the echoes. There's not a lot of echoes, but when I do record I do my auditions here, but when I'm recording for like a big company or any company, I go in my closet because it's padded. There's clothes in there, there's things to help the sound, stay compacted. It doesn't sound like I'm like in like an arena and it's a lot of echoes. So all these tools here are very important.
Let's see. Somebody asked for the brand name of your items. That might be something good to do after. I don't know if you want to say them all right now.
Yeah, so I have it in my e-guide, but I know that my microphone is a Fifine, Fifine, a Fifine microphone. So that's the name of my microphone. The pop filter, you can just type in pop filter and it screws onto your microphone. And then you can just, I don't even know like I don't know what brand this is, but my boyfriend got this for me for Christmas because my old mic was all hanging everywhere. But I don't know where he got this from, but it was a company that this came with it. This padding came with it and the mic stand. And then when I travel, I'll show you what I travel with. When I have auditions to do when I'm traveling, the last time I was in DC 3 weeks ago, I actually recorded for MTV off of this microphone. So it's a Fifine, F-I-N-E microphone. And I just plug it into my Mac via USB and I'll literally set up pillows. And again, you don't need I'm recording from MTV with pillows around me. I didn't need a fancy studio or to rent out a studio. You can literally just do it from any room. I had a bunch of pillows around to help keep the sound in and sound absorbed. And that's the promo that you hear on MTV.
Is an agent or an agency required if you want to do audiobooks?
Yes and no. It just depends. So like, for instance, I had a audition come through for an audiobook for Disney. And that came through an agency. So I think it just depends on who's putting out the audiobook. So if it's a person who wrote their own memoir and they want to make it an audiobook on, audible.com, which they can do, something like that, I'm pretty sure based on their budget, they will go to Voice 123 to find someone. But a Disney, a Simon and Schuster, like those big, book companies, they will go through agents.
And then I think you just answered this question. Do you need to be in a studio to record audiobooks?
No. There was a guy that I knew who worked for Disney and he had got booked to record an audiobook. And he said he was literally in his closet, sweating like crazy, but he recorded from his closet. So some actors do have amazing setups, like actual booths in their house. But until you get there, you don't need that. You can do, as long as you have a closet that's closed off. Nickelodeon, when I first started recording with Nickelodeon, they were telling me to go in the closet and put a blanket over me. So I'm like literally recording for Nickelodeon with a blanket over my head, my microphone, and that was it. So
Pro tip, blanket.
Yeah, you just need a place where the sound can be controlled. And that's it. And good Wi-Fi.
I have a buddy who's an author and he recorded his own audiobook and he did it like in a closet.
Yeah, and what's crazy is we have all of these setups. And then when I was recording for Netflix, I go to Roundabout Studios in Burbank to record for Netflix. And you're in a room, a huge room, and it's no padding. You're just there with a microphone in a huge room. But they have crazy expensive equipment that, I remember I did a booking and I took my daughter with me to the actual booking in the studio. And I had my headphones on and I'm talking and I could hear her like way back there eating an apple. So their equipment in the studio is top notch, but me in my closet, I need the blanket.
I have a microphone that I got from YouTube. It's some just a kind of a big microphone, and
Yeah.
I had it in the place I used to live has multiple floors,
Mhm.
and I was recording something. I was reading some poetry, and I played it back later, and I heard my neighbors from like all the way across the building. Like my door was closed, the walls, all the way across the building, like talking outside on the microphone. Like, what? How did it pick that up? It's insane.
And I live in Hollywood. So I'm like right there near the new Netflix building. I'm like right there. So goodness, God forbid, there's a helicopter, somebody's running from the police on a high-speed chase, like police cars. It's crazy where I live. So like sometimes I'd have to stop, wait for the helicopter to go past, and then keep going.
Yeah, that ends. Yeah, it just goes right through the soundscape.
Yeah, it is what it is.
So I have a good question here. A couple of people actually have asked about recording in different languages. So what's the market like? How do you get into doing voiceover work and recording in other language besides English?
So basically when you sign with an agency, they have your specs. So they say Aneesha is an African-American female. She can sound between 4 years old and 40 years old. And so when an audition comes through, if it doesn't fit me, they won't even send it to me. So if they say we want, and they know Aneesha only speaks English, right? Aneesha can do this dialect. She can sound Southern. She can sound, like she's from New Orleans. And so if the audition calls for that, then they'll send it to me. But if it's saying we want this person to speak French or whatever, or be a native French speaker, I don't even get it. I don't even see it because, that doesn't fit my specs that my agency knows that I'm, can do.
And you covered this partially. How many hours do you work in a day as a voice actor? And what about for audiobooks?
So I've never done an audiobook. One day, hopefully the Disney one comes back, but I haven't done audiobooks. But it's quick. For Nickelodeon, when I'm doing the promos, they'll book you for an hour, 2 hours max sometimes. Sometimes it takes a whole hour. If you're great, it takes 30 minutes. I've had a session where I was booked for an hour. I was done in 15 minutes. For Nickelodeon, I'm done in 15 minutes. And for the 15 minutes, it pays very well. For the video games, I was there, for an hour. It just depends. So I would say I may get one booking a week on average, right? And that's amazing. I get one booking a week, and it's only an hour or two a week. For Netflix, for the season, I was recording all 10 episodes. So they broke it up. I went in 3 times, a 4-hour session, another 4-hour session, and then I came in for a 2-hour session. So that was 10 hours for a whole season, but they break it up over a few days. So it just depends what the gig calls for. If you're recording a whole season, then you got to be there a lot. But if you're just doing promos, it'll take you 30 minutes. If the commercials that I did for Taco Bell and for AT&T, they booked me for 2 hours, and you still get paid the 2 hours, but I was done in like an hour. So it just depends how well you take direction. It just depends how well you take direction. If you're not taking direction well, then you may be there the whole 2 hours. Sometimes you'll be done in an hour, but they want you to stay on the phone while they put your voice to the visual to make sure it matches up. And if it doesn't, they may say, okay, can you come back and do this line a little bit faster? So it just depends.
From what I know about audiobook recording, and I've visited a studio before, and they basically do it over a few days. Like if it's a long book, you'll just rereading it all day long, and you come back the next day if you need to. It depends on how much you need to read.
It's a lot on your voice, and so they want to like the people in the voiceover business, the casting direct, like they're all about voice preservation. They don't want you to burn out your voice because your voice makes you money and makes them money. So it's all about voice preservation. So when you have an audiobook or something like the video game, it's an hour at a time, because it's a lot of screaming, and then they may bring you back 3 days later because they know it's strenuous, on your voice. And like, I need this voice. Like, if I lose my voice, then nobody's getting paid. So yeah.
Efforting is a word that I learned. Like I've learned the word efforting today, and that's it. I'm done. I'm done for the day.
So now when you
learn something new.
A video game behind, you're like, that's efforting.
See, I think somebody's asking, what's the name of the cartoon show you created? Was it on YouTube? People will get the copy of the presentation, so everybody be able to see all that stuff. Yeah.
It's called, if you go to Go Kid Go, Go Kid Go. So this is the show that I created right here, the holidays. So if you go to gokidgo.com, go to shows, and the holidays is the show that I created. And then on Whale of a Tale, I played the voice of Xavier. And then I'm actually going to be playing Camille the Camel in season 9 of Bobby Wonder. And then they have a new one coming out called, it starts with an M, but I play a character on there. So yes, this is Go Kid Go, and it's audio podcast for children.
That's so cool.
Yeah.
We're going to be listening to this in the car.
Yeah. Oh yeah. Yeah.
My son has a Spotify playlist, and I'm going to say, hang on a second. Let me let you listen to something else.
Something else. And it's super, it like plays with their imagination. It's the coolest thing. It's the coolest thing.
He's going to love it. Let's see, who's helping you film Poppy episodes? What are the biggest challenges filming live? Do you have to get permission from each location?
No. Well, I do it as a courtesy. We're in the world of influencers, so everybody's filming everything, but as a courtesy, I do ask. So when I went to the alpaca place in Santa Barbara, I emailed ahead and said, hey, can I come? when I did the apiary, we visited we were beekeepers for the day. We visited an apiary, and I emailed ahead of time. Mr. Marvin was great, and it was just us there, and I was able to take my time somewhat. He wanted to make sure, like when I took the puppet out, that the bees didn't go crazy and react crazy to the puppet. So when I'm doing things like that, I do ask. But when I went to DC, no, I parked the car, walked in front of the National Monument, walked to the MLK, walked to the Lincoln Memorial. They just happened to be doing spring garden tours at the White House. Gypped the line, got a ticket for one, walked in, and the Secret Service, as I was walking in, it's crazy when the puppet's so big that when I have it in a bag, people think it's a child. So I get all these crazy looks because it's just like feet hanging out, like feet dangling out. And when I got up to the Secret Service, I had to put the puppet through the conveyor belt. And the Secret Service guy, he was like, "Can you make the puppet talk?" And I'm like, if the Secret Service asks you to do something, you better do it. So I'm like trying to hurry to get my hand in the puppet to make it talk. But it was the coolest thing. So for the White House stuff, I didn't. I just went as a regular guest. But when I'm going like on a tour of some type, I do ask. I just say, "Can I film it?" It's very low maintenance. It's just literally me, my iPhone, my boyfriend, if he's there, normally Poppy's with me anyway, and he's with me. So sometimes he'll hold it for me. I've gotten to the point now where I can do it myself. So some shots, I attach my phone to a selfie stick and I just hold it up. So I have the selfie stick in one hand and my hand in the puppet in the second one. And I'm kind of like putting myself out the frame. When I went to the National Monument and things like that, if I want the puppet in the shot, I'll just set up like a phone stand. I set up a phone stand that I got on Amazon, press record, and then record it, and then I'll cut it up in iMovie later. But I'm only 12 episodes in, but I'm so used to it now that it's easy. Like sometimes I will only script out the intro and outro, and then I just flow with it with everything else. But I think because I love it and it was an idea of mine, it's a lot of work, but it's not hard work. Like, and I think that's a cliche too. People always say, "Oh, I work so hard." It's like, if it's what you love, it's not really hard because I love to do it. Like I'm not building train tracks here. Like I love to I'm doing animation stuff. Like I'm traveling the world with a puppet. It's a lot of work, but it's not hard at all.
I've got to do this. I hope the episode that you filmed at the apiary generates a lot of buzz.
Yeah, right.
Sorry, I have to. Dad
Love
joke.
that.
Sorry.
You had to do that, right?
I have to do it. I'm sorry. Aneesha, I'm sorry, everybody out there.
Too funny.
So let's do like 2 or 3 more questions because we're at time here. So so what's the average compensation for working as a voiceover actor? I know it depends on a lot of factors, but like what can somebody expect to make in the various parts of voiceover?
So I will say for Nickelodeon, I would get like, or for any promos I do, it depends. That's normally a one-time fee. So let's just say if I'm doing a promo for 30 minutes, I'm making like $950 for 30 minutes. I would say for what's another one? For when I'm recording things for Netflix, I get paid per hour, and it's always a 2-hour minimum. So I may get $350 an hour, $150 an hour. It just depends on what the breakdown is. What's another one? Promo. I love promo. So promo, they basically pay you a session fee. So the session fee can be $500. And then that's a session fee, and then they pay you a usage fee. Or a buyout fee, and I'm with SAG-AFTRA, so like the union, I do union and non-union, but like the union jobs, they say are always better. They pay you well, they take care of you. But I would get random checks in the mail from one of the promos I did. I would get random checks in the mail for $2,000, $4,500. I had no idea they were coming, but it was based off where they played my audio. They were playing it. And when I would get my pay stub, it would say for usage fees, Texas, Midwest, blah, blah, blah. And I had no idea those checks are coming, but they were always right on time. So it just depends. It literally just depends. Like, whether you do Nickelodeon or Disney or, what's the buyout fee, the session fee, it literally just depends on whatever the contract is on the back end. And then again, sometimes we'll get auditions and it'll say like, if you want above scale, which means scale can be $300 for the hour. If you say I want above scale, you can say I want above scale. I want more than this. And if you feel like it's too low, you don't have to do it. Sometimes it'll say, for certain shows, it may say, based off the scale of the work, it's you're going to get paid $90 an hour. You can see that and say, I don't want to do it. You know, it's you don't. The only time you have to submit an audition is when you are requested. So if Nickelodeon or Netflix or some promo, if they request you and you don't submit, your agency will probably drop you. So I would say that's the only time, you know, because you're being requested by this client and they want to hear you, right? And if you don't want to do it, it's like, what? So the pay it just depends, but it's for the amount of work you do and the time it takes, the pay is amazing. But then again, you're not working every single day, you know? So you just have to also make sure you're good with budgeting, and voiceover I do it every day, but it's not the only thing I do. So, yeah, it just depends.
No, that's good. That's a general answer that people can take and kind of play with.
Yeah.
For what they want to do.
Yeah.
So let's do one last question. So this is, I'll read a specific question, but it's actually, I think, a bigger question here. So do you think there's still room for someone in their 30s to begin a voice acting career? But let me say this. Do you think that there's still room for somebody in their 30s, 40s, 50s, 60s, 70s, 90s, hundreds?
Absolutely.
110s?
Absolutely. When I was recording, because there's specs, not everybody wants a African-American woman who can sound between 6 and 40, right? There's roles that'll say, like, I may get an audition and it has like 4 roles, and it'll say audition for the roles that you fit for. So the third, fourth, and fifth role may say, we want a woman who sounds like she's in her 90s or in her 80s. I can't sound like that. Like, if I do, I'm trying to get like, I'm talking like that. So it's not good. So absolutely, specs call for all types of ages. When I was casting for the holidays, I needed a dad. I needed someone who sounded like a dad. I needed someone who sounded like a grandfather. I needed someone who sounded like an elderly neighbor. So I'm trying to find all of these voices of people who sound like that. I needed someone who sounded like a teacher. Like, I needed these older voices that, you know, I couldn't do. So absolutely, when I was before COVID, and before the pandemic and everything shut down, I was doing voiceover classes in person, and I loved it because you can hear how other working actors are interpreting a script and then delivering the script. And I was the youngest in the class. And at that time I was 36. I was the youngest in the class. The oldest in the class was probably like 78. Absolutely, you can be signed tomorrow at 30, 40, 50, 60, 70, because there's so many things that call for different types of voices. Like, they don't want my voice, they don't want my voice, talking about, buying tires, right? Because who's going to believe my voice? And I'm telling you to go buy 4 tires, right? They probably want, like, a guy talking about buying tires because he sounds more believable rather than me saying, go buy 4 tires. So absolutely, like, even children, when I go to speak to the schools, I tell the kids, like, Paw Patrol, I'm pretty sure everybody on here is familiar with Paw Patrol. Paw Patrol, all of the main characters, Chase, Zuma, Sky, all of them are voiced by children. They're not voiced by adults sounding like children. They are all voiced by children. So in the supporting cast is adults, I'm sure, but they only wanted children. Sometimes I'll get specs and it'll say, we want adults who sound like children, who can sound between 6 and 8. Sometimes it'll say, this role, we want an adult who can sound like she's between 6 and 8. But then for these 3 roles, we want children, actual children. So even kids, Atlas Talent Agency has so many kids who are working on the most amazing shows on all of these networks. So from 6 years old to 96 years old, there's room for everyone, because somebody always wants some different type of voice to get their brand out there to the world.
That makes sense. Although it will be funny to hear you do a promo for Ice Road Truckers.
Exactly. Like, would you go watch Ice Road Truckers if I say it? Like, no.
I would, though. I would.
Listen, I think I'm talented, but I also know what's believable, because sometimes I'll get a script and I'll do it. And if I don't believe it, because it's not like you get feedback. It's not like your agent says, Aneesha, try again. Sometimes, like, they'll do that as a whole. Like, if they get auditions and then they change the specs and they want it to sound a little bit different, they'll send the audition back out. But you don't get individual feedback. So if I don't believe it, if I don't sound believable, or if I'm not feeling it, I'll record it, but then I just won't submit it because I just want to make sure I'm putting quality work out there, because the auditions are sent to me on purpose based on who I am and how I sound. So like, for instance, the one that came through that said they want to sound like, for instance, I have an example for Blippi. When I'm Felicia Firefly, in the specs, they said they wanted the character to be Cardi B-esque, like the rapper, like just very fun like her. So I had to like embody what I think Cardi B would be like as a cartoon character. And I did so well that I got it. So you'll get things like that where I know I can embody it. So if they say we want the person to come, we want a woman who sounds like Marvin Gaye or, Aretha Franklin, I'm not gonna do it because I can't do it.
But somebody can.
Somebody can, just me.
All right. Well, Aneesha, thank you so much for sharing your experience, your
You.
enthusiasm, your
Yeah.
inspiration with us.
Of
And I thank
course.
you to the audience for
Yeah.
joining us here. And before we conclude, I want to ask humbly if folks can fill out our post-event survey. So after every event, we send out a post-event survey. It's very, very simple. It just asks, how you felt about the program, whether it was effective for you, and what you'd like to learn about in the future. We read the surveys, we use them. So very much appreciate if you could take 2 minutes to fill that out. Aneesha, thank you. Everyone else, thank you so much. I'll look over the questions, and if some of the questions fit, then we can talk about maybe getting some of those questions answered as well, because there was more questions, but time.
I totally get it, but yeah, I'm happy to answer the remaining questions however you see best, for sure.
Sounds good. Well, thanks again, Aneesha, and thank everybody, and we'll see everybody next time.
Bye, everyone.